This is the first event of the Western Liberty Network. There are going to be a lot more, and they're going to be a lot larger. And I look forward to working with Jeff and Holly in the events to come. So now what I want to talk about is a Roman general whose name was Fabius Maximus. And he was a general who fought Carthage. And he came under attack from his own people all the time because he didn't like a head-on battle. He didn't like to just charge in head-to-head. He liked to harass, to harangue, to cause problems and win by attrition. They called him Fabius the Delayer. And his name was used by a group of socialists in Great Britain. And they're known as the Fabian Socialists. How many people here have heard about the Fabian Socialists? Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. I am a capitalist to the core. I love capitalism. But the Fabian Socialists have used tactics that we could really learn from. A Fabian Socialist is one who holds to the ideals of Fabian socialism, which advocates socialistic democracy, but wants to achieve reform gradually, rather through a revolution. It began in the 19th century, and it went through World War II, and laid the foundations for the modern Labour Party in Great Britain. Tony Blair is a Fabian socialist. Gordon Brown is also one. George Bernard Shaw was one. There are a lot of them who are there. Now, they're a think tank, one of 15 organizations formerly affiliated with the Labour Party. And what they would ask their people to do would be to run for the lowest office they could find, whatever it was, the lowest office they could find, and get as many people to run for these offices as possible. And their thinking was that they would gain control of the bureaucracy at the very lowest levels and then rise up. And as they rose up, the Fabian Socialists would throw more people in to the bottom levels of the organization. And eventually they would control the entire bureaucracy. Even if conservatives won major races, the high-profile races, some of the MP races, or even got a prime minister elected, it wouldn't matter very much. Because even though that would be a setback from their perspective, they would still control the game. You know, you see this with corruption all the time. There are nations like Ukraine, lots of them in Africa, where corruption is rampant. And even if they elect a strong president, somebody who's friendly to the West, somebody who's a strong capitalist, they're often not able to get their reforms through because the corruption taking place at the local level just causes everything to stall. Does this sound familiar to you? Yes, it does, doesn't it? That is what the left has done in the United States. They have organized themselves in such a way that they find grassroots people, much like yourselves, except that they're on the left, and encourage them to get involved in their local school board, vector control board, water board, sewer board, whatever it is, the lowest offices they could find, and get people in those offices. And as they rise, they mentor people coming up behind them and keep feeding them. Take a look at what's happening. I know that it's not always true in every rural district, but where I live, I sit on a water board, and there are 4 liberals and me, and that's it. If you go to Metro, they're all liberals. If you talk about fire districts, they're all lefties. All of them. School board, they're all lefties. Raise your hand if this is how it is in your community. These small boards, yeah, it's most of the people here, not all of them. And so what I'm suggesting to you is that we need to elect a president that supports limited government. We need to elect members of Congress and state legislators. But if that's all we do, we will fail. We will ultimately lose. Because while we're winning a battle over here, we're losing 100 battles over here. In Clackamas County right now, they just had a major accomplishment. They stopped a registration fee to build a bridge in another county. But the grassroots community took almost all the effort they had to fight this one battle. And while they were fighting this one battle, all of these local governments in Clackamas County were passing all kinds of other ordinances that nobody had time to fight. So while you're winning over here, you're losing in 5 other places over here. You can't cover it all. If we want to change the fabric of Oregon's political culture, and indeed the political culture of the United States, we have to reverse this. Limited government people are always going to local government saying, you know, don't pass this, don't raise this tax, lower this fee, and if they don't, we petition. Let's reverse this. Let's shrink government at the local level and make them the ones that are petitioning to do things. Put them on the defensive. That's what's happening. And so when we move from passion, as exemplified by the Tea Party rallies, toward action, this is where we need to go. Doing initiative petitions is critically important. It is a way that citizens themselves can become legislators. Getting involved in high-profile races is also very important. We need good leaders at the top. But if the Tea Party movement is to survive, and in fact, if the limited government movement is going to survive, we have to get active in local governance, and we have to bring people in. We have to move out of our comfort zone. For conservatives, that's an issue. Liberals love government. They love it. And they have lots of people to help them. Public employees, their unions, organizations that are funded through state and federal grants. They have coaches, facilitators, all of these things to bring people in. There's nothing like that comparably on the conservative side. That is what Western Liberty Network is going to do. Help organizations work better as organizations, and as people become more confident, and as they're able to run for office and they decide to run for office, give them the tools they need to win, and little by little change the political culture of this state and indeed this entire nation. There is a lot we can learn from the Fabian socialists. How many here have run for office in this larger group? Yeah, maybe about a quarter of the people here. Okay? How many people think that they might want to run for office someday for some local office where you live? Okay, I see a few more hands. How many people are willing to help somebody who's running in a race? Every single hand is up. That's fantastic. And that tells me that we are absolutely on the right track. So anyway, this is what it's about. We have to take a look at what the Fabian socialists did. And even though it's not the most exciting thing, you will be amazed at how challenging battles at these local levels can be. Local government is really where the action is. These are the levels of government that impact our lives the most. What will your water bill be? If you want to put an awning outside the front of your building, how much will the permit fees be? If you want to build a restaurant, what's a business license cost? How much are you going to have to pay the inspectors? All of these things are local issues that impact our local economy, that impact our daily lives. And if we don't control that as limited government proponents, we're going to leave that field wide open to people who love the state. And what is that going to do to our small business? What's that going to do to the opportunities we have for our kids? What does that have to do with what our children will be taught? Holly talked about that to a large extent through her Operation Greenout discussions. If limited government advocates are on the school board, it would be a completely different ballgame. So this is where we need to go. And I'm very happy that all of you here are interested in moving that direction, because I firmly believe that that is one of the next places that the Tea Party movement needs to go if it is not only to remain politically relevant, but to remain politically effective. And so those are some of the lessons I think we can learn from the Fabian socialists. Lessons that we can apply. And if we apply them and the other side applies them, we'll win. And the reason why we will win is because our ideas are better than their ideas are. Right? Our ideas are better, and people know it because our ideas speak to that which is good in individuals. It inspires individuals. It tells them that you matter as an individual. You're just not a cog in a collective wheel. And people like that message. It gives them hope that their lives will have meaning and that they can decide what that meaning is. Now, it's all very lofty and philosophical, but when you're involved in government and you get out of people's way, you bring out the best in them, and that is what makes the United States exceptional. And that's what makes the West exceptional. You know, I picked a cowboy motif for Western Liberty Network, you know, not because I don't even really know how to ride a horse, okay? But it's the spirit of the West, self-reliance, the ability to make it on your own, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, the freedom that is part of, you know, the American West that people see, you know, that's idealized in all of the movies. Those are the things that make America exceptional and make the West exceptional among Americans. And so I am excited to start this new organization. I'm excited to work with folks like you and folks like Jeff and Holly. And we're going to pull this off. Over the arc of time, the movement has always been from less freedom to more freedom. It's not true from place to place, but globally, we are more free than we were 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, we were more free than we were the 100 years before that. And I believe that although there are forward steps and backward steps, I believe the arc of freedom over time is moving in the right direction. And that means that we will win. It's just a question of whether we'll do it in our lifetime, whether we'll do it for our kids. And I think we will. And this is a map. If we're able to dismantle what the statists have built, we cannot but succeed in achieving the kind of nation we want to build and having the kind of future we want for ourselves and our kids. So anyway, that is a shortened version of my speech. I have a question. Yes?
Seems like the one answer in my mind is just to starve the bureaucracy for money. I mean, that's if they don't have the money, they can't do all the things that they want to do.
Yeah, the gentleman said that one thing we can do is starve the bureaucracy. And indeed, you know, in some circumstances, that's a valid tactic. But it's amazing how creative they are. You know, it's amazing what they're able to do. It's like cockroaches in a building. You can seal up as many doors and windows as you want, but they find a way to get in if they are in control of boards. A good example is light rail in the Portland metropolitan area. How many times have voters voted down trains? And they find the money anyway. If they don't get it from this resource, they'll get it from Congress or they'll get it from something else. And yes, you need to challenge them by strangling them, but that won't stop them. As long as they're still in charge, we're still on the defensive. So let's be in charge. And we can be in charge by putting ourselves out there the way grassroots people do on the left, getting elected, and then turning off the switch on this stuff. You know, that is how we'll win. You win by winning. You don't win by losing and doing rearguard actions. So let's win, okay? Thank you. You bet. Okay.